By all appreciable metrics, the Ioniq 5 from Hyundai was a resounding success. Now the company is introducing its sedan based on the E-GMP platform. Called the Ioniq 6, Hyundai refers to it as their electric streamliner. What does that mean? Well, it means it should have a little bit better driving dynamics, but it also means it should have a lot better range. Let's take a look at this car to see exactly how they were able to, hopefully, accomplish both of those.
The Hyundai Ioniq 6 comes in 2 drivetrain options and 2 different battery sizes. The base, standard range car has 18-inch wheels, rear-wheel drive with 149 horsepower, a 53 kilowatt-hour battery pack, and an estimated range of 240 miles. Moving up to the 77.4 kilowatt-hour bigger battery rear drive model increases power to 225 horsepower and range to 361 miles on the 18-inch wheels. If you opt for 20-inch wheels in rear drive, that range drops to 305 miles. Those 20s are only available on long-range models. If you want all-wheel drive, the combined horsepower increases to 320. The range on the 18-inch wheels is 316 miles, while the range on the 20-inch rollers is 270 miles. All cars are capable of charging at 235 kilowatts, meaning you can go from 10% to 80% in just 18 minutes. All models also include a battery preconditioning system linked to the navigation. For level 2 charging, peak AC is up to 10.9 kilowatts. For those living in colder climates, all models except the SE standard range come with a heat pump. The range on this car is noticeably better than other E-GMP cars like the Ioniq 5 or GV60. You can thank the Ioniq 6's drag coefficient of just 0.22. Sedans are just naturally more aerodynamic than crossovers. But does this car's focus on efficiency hinder its driving? Let's get behind the wheel and find out.
So this was a car that I was really excited to drive because I wanted to know not only what were the differences between its stablemate in the Ioniq 5, but also I'm more of a sedan person than a crossover guy. I don't need all of that extra space. So this car is more appealing to me just in that regard than maybe some other folks. And really the big takeaway in driving experience, I mean, it feels like you're in an Ioniq. Steering wheel feels very similar, though there's a little bit of changes there. The instrument cluster is very familiar. There's some design elements around it that are different, but you do feel like you're in an Ioniq line vehicle. What I've noticed is it rides better. It handles bumps better. The suspension is maybe a little bit firmer. Little bit better steering response. Not that there's a ton of steering feel in a modern car, but a little bit better response. It feels a little sportier. It feels more like how an EV6 drives, where I could draw a real distinction between Ioniq 5 and EV6. Even though it does have a very sleek, Hyundai calls it a streamliner silhouette, you do have a decent amount of space inside. I've got reasonably good headroom. Rear seat headroom also seems to be pretty positive, and there's a lot of rear seat legroom, even with the front seats pushed all the way back. I was riding in the passenger seat earlier, and putting a seat all the way back on most cars, I can still usually touch my feet to the front of the firewall, and I couldn't in this car. So there's a ton of space, almost a deceptive amount of space, considering sort of the way the car looks and just how big it overall appears. There's obviously more cargo capacity in Ioniq 5, or at least I believe there is, because you get that full cargo area experience, where this you just get a trunk. All models get a power-operated trunk, and it has Hyundai's smart approach thing. The keyless, keys in your pocket, walk up to the trunk pops itself. Some other cool things that the Ioniq 6 does that the Ioniq 5 does not is launching with this model is built-in dynamic route planning. So one of my biggest complaints of the E-GMP cars was you couldn't go in, put in a destination into the navigation, and have it route you there while also sending you to charging stations. In fact, their system was pretty basic. It would just show you, here's a where you are, and here's a circle of where you can drive, and that's really kind of useless. So now it has a much more Tesla-like experience. You go in, you put whatever destination you want in, it communicates through Hyundai BlueLink, which BlueLink Plus is free forever now, or mostly forever, as long as you keep the car. And it will then route you to two charging stations. Now, it'll look to see if those charging stations are online. It can look to see if stuff is busy. Now, the data is only as accurate as what's provided by the charging station. So if Electrify America is terrible, like they are regularly, there is always, I guess, that possibility you show up into a charging station that doesn't work. But Hyundai is using all of the information available to it to improve that road trip driving experience. And honestly, that's fantastic. There are some other automakers that do it. Tesla obviously sort of innovated that technology. Ford's system works reasonably well. The system that's in the higher end Porsche and Audi cars, so I guess all of Porsches because they're all high end, and the e-tron GT, those systems in there work pretty well. Volkswagen's base system, it's trash. It'll route you to a 6 kilowatt charger when there's a 50 kilowatt charger a tenth of a mile away. It's not intelligent sort of at all in the route planning. And then GMs and Polestars and Volvos are all using the Android Automotive's built-in Google Map functionality, which is also pulling charging station data. I don't know if eventually if BlueLink will support Apple Maps built-in support for dynamic route planning. So you're probably going to be forced to use the built-in navigation for it for a considerable amount of time. But the built-in navigation seems to work pretty well, and it also controls the battery heater for when you need a precondition for charging. So put in a destination, car sort of handles the rest, which is how this is supposed to work. And the big demerit when Ioniq 5, I thought when it shipped, the big demerit was the lack of this dynamic route planning. We were promised it was coming, and then EV6 comes along, and we were promised it was coming, and then the updated Nero comes along, and we're promised that it's coming, and it's like, well, is it coming? It's here. It's in this car. You'll be able to buy it. I'm not sure sort of over-the-air upgradability on cars that are already sold, like the Ioniq 5, but expect this to roll out across probably the whole Hyundai Motor fleet, so I would expect Kia to get it as well as Genesis. Hyundai's also playing a lot with interior ambient lighting, using their parametric pixel design. They're doing some really clever things with the lighting, and there's actually multicolor themes. So there's separate different light zones that can be adjusted accordingly. If you really want to like go full cyberpunk, you can do that sort of with the lighting in this car, and with the interior and exterior appearance of a modern day cyberpunk kind of car. It really fits. Overall driving experience, though, in cruising, it is a lot like Ioniq 5, which means it's super quiet. It probably is a little bit quieter than the Ioniq 5, just because the coefficient of drag on this car is 0.22. I don't know what it is on the Ioniq 5, but it's not 0.22. And so I don't really hear any wind noise from the wing mirrors. There's very little wind noise from up front. When it was raining harder earlier, yeah, you could hear a lot of the rain, but like no car insulates you from that. And there is a little bit of road noise, but you can't really make that go away. So I feel like this car would be very comfortable on a long journey. Speaking of long journeys and range, the longest range version of this car is available with 361 miles. So that's the rear drive, long range battery with the 18-inch wheels. Now, what is sort of commonplace in automotive design is, we got to fit bigger wheels to everything. So going up to 20-inch wheels and adding all-wheel drive, which is like what the vehicle we're in now, drops that range to 270. And then depending on how you spec the car, you could be somewhere between that 270 and that 361. Most people are going to want the all-wheel drive with the bigger wheels, so they're going to get that 270. But if you wanted 308s, you can do the 20-inch wheels with the rear drive. There's 316, I believe, is rear drive with the, I don't know. Basically, look it up. We'll put a link in the description because I'm not smart enough to know all of that. One last thing to mention about interior is Hyundai did, I don't want to say put more effort into this car, but I think there's a little bit of a distinction, a little bit of almost a disappointment with the Ioniq 5 interior in that the exterior looks so crazy and the interior looks a little bit tame. Now, I do like that they don't include the center console so that you can have sort of extra space for just space. And you also get the little reclining ottoman sort of thing to relax while you're charging. You don't get that on this car. But this feels like a much sportier car. Having sort of the armrest and stuff here kind of gives you a little bit more of a cockpit feel, and the thickness of the steering wheel, it feels like it's coming from a sportier car, like something you would expect from an N-line product or a full Hyundai N item, which this car should be an N, hopefully, sometime soon, maybe, fingers crossed. Just for full disclosure, there is a Hyundai person in the back seat, so that's kind of me. But that's kind of me begging for future performance. But this dual motor car has plenty of power, especially at that around the town speed where you're going to use it the most. Out on the highway, it's not going to be the absolute most powerful car in the universe, but you're going to be faster than nearly every other gas power car on the road. You're going to be able to overtake well. You're going to be able to just, get down a ramp. If you're in California with its notoriously short on-ramps, again, not an issue. And then I guess the last thing I should talk about is this weird, sleek, I don't want to say weird, but this sleek sort of streamliner design. You would think that the blind spots would be terrible in this car. And the rear window is actually pretty big. The wing mirrors are actually pretty big. Hyundai didn't make them small for the sake of aero. And because the rear doors are so big, because this car is pretty long. The wheelbase is a little bit shorter than the Ioniq 5, but the car overall is quite long. The visibility is actually pretty good. There's a couple blind spots here and there, but it's not nearly as bad as I expected it to be. It might even be better than the Ioniq 5. And of course, Hyundai includes, they don't call it lane watch because that's a Honda thing, but it has the cameras in the mirrors that when you indicate will show you on the instrument cluster what's in your blind spot. So it makes the car super, you get used to it and you're just like, I don't want to drive a car without it. So driving experience, things that I don't like, I really am having a hard time figuring that out. Most of the interior materials are good. A couple areas like where the video monitors would be for cars that don't have real mirrors but have digital rearview mirrors, plastic's a little plasticky. But the overall design, I think, still works without the screens. So, I don't know. I don't know why you wouldn't buy this car, to be completely honest, and I would like one myself. And I'm not just saying that because the Hyundai guy's in the back seat. But the E-GMP cars all deliver. I mean, you watch some of our other videos, you'll see how much we love the E-GMP cars. They charge quickly. This will do 10 to 80% in 18 minutes, just like the Ioniq 5 will, just like the EV6 will, just like the Genesis stuff will. And it looks different. It looks unique. It looks like nothing on the road right now. And because the sedan won't, just because sedans don't sell as well, you won't see as many of them. So when you do see one on the road, it'll be kind of special. And it's cool. I mean, it's genuinely a cool car. And I really look forward to seeing what Hyundai will be able to do when they do a proper performance version of this car.
If you want to buy my favorite version of the E-GMP cars so far, you can expect to pay at least $42,715 with delivery to get the standard range SE rear drive model. If you want the 361-mile version, and you probably do, the starting price there is $46,615. For the upgraded SEL model, add $2,200. For a fully loaded limited with rear-wheel drive, the starting price with delivery is $52,315. The SE all-wheel drive is $50,115, the SEL all-wheel drive is $52,315, and the all-wheel drive limited is $57,215. While incentive information seems to be changing regularly, the car should be eligible for $7,500 off on leases.
The Ioniq 6 is a fantastic car that delivers on range, on performance, on charging speed, now on dynamic route planning. No car is perfect, but it really is difficult to find fault with this. If you want an electric sedan, this is probably the one to buy. To check out our full review of the award-winning Ioniq 5, click the video right here.